The planet Berrish was once the heart of the mighty trillion worlds empire, the greatest power the Yallara galaxy had ever known. But many billions of years ago, this race mysteriously vanished, leaving behind only enigmatic artifacts and scattered celestial monuments on planets. One such monument was the Berrish Key, a gigantic engineering structure in the shape of a space needle, hundreds of kilometers tall, towering over the scorched desert of this dead world. According to legends, this key was the control core of all trillion technologies, a kind of reboot key for their entire super system. Research by the Hrant and Primer scientists showed that the energy field created by the activated key could temporarily immobilize any machine constructions by briefly putting them into suspended animation. In other words, it could buy precious time to develop countermeasures and prepare a decisive counterattack against the Virrom. The operation to capture the key itself was planned in utmost secrecy to prevent any leaks, and its participants trained with unprecedented zeal, for they would have to land on a planet with a destroyed ecosystem and extremely thin atmosphere, overcome countless obstacles and force fields of ancient defense systems, and then somehow activate the massive key, which was unlikely to have any working control systems left. The landing operation involved the best forces of the Hrant Legion, the assault armored groups of the 6th Night Wing, engineering teams of the Terraformer Wings, special forces of the Shadow Hunters, as well as representatives of virtually all allied races and nations of the Yallara galaxy. For this was not just about saving individual civilizations, but about the fate of all intelligent life under the onslaught of the Virrom's madness. The first waves of the landing force were met with relentless storms of dark energy matter on the surface of Berrish. Scout groups barely had time to disperse and begin clearing paths to the key, before entire Hrant war machines disappeared without a trace, literally swallowed by insatiable vortexes of antimatter. Countless multi-legged sapper droids perished from the slightest attempts to breach the defense systems of the ancient mechanisms built into the very structure of the planet. Heavy fire support units sometimes had to destroy entire fields of trap constructs, attacking the assault troops one by one. Ultimately, it took 2 months of heaviest losses before the first forward forces managed to break through to the massive cavern under the key's skeleton. As it turned out, it was not just an antenna, but an extremely complex technogenic complex with myriads of underground levels. Step by step, more and more Hrant assault teams descended into the hellish abyss. Armadas of shuttles and repair ships struggled to supply the underground operation with equipment and weapons. The full might of the Legion was thrown into capturing the key. At the center of the complex, they discovered an artificial intelligence of truly boundless power and impressive core of the spiritual and technological legacy of the trillion worlds themselves. Realizing the full scale of the task, the command decided to use the experimental kinship matrix, a mysterious artifact that allowed the minds of multiple beings to merge into a single synchronized consciousness. Adepts of all allied races combined their minds and souls with the Berrish AI, the most powerful supercomputer of the bygone superpower era. This allowed them to recreate part of the algorithms controlling its systems and the keys mechanisms. After many painful attempts, losses, and setbacks, they finally found the right combination to activate the ancient relic. A sudden cataclysm of exotic matter engulfed every corner of the galaxy, immobilizing any cybernetic systems for several weeks, from Virrom war modules to the simplest repair droids. Despite the colossal price, an invaluable chance had been gained to strike back against the killer civilization. All the united armadas of the Hrant and Primers launched a decisive offensive to liberate the occupied arms of Yallara. In the 1,000-year, most massive modern war against the Virrom, no one could surpass the Hrant Orcs in perseverance and self-sacrifice. For the single feat of obtaining the Berrish Key alone, they deserved to be called the truly legendary Galactic Guardians. But the greatest of their triumphs was yet to be witnessed by all the intelligent peoples of Yallara. The war with the Virrom continued after the activation of the Berrish Key, with fierce attacks and counterattacks on both sides. But now the race alliance led by the Hrant had gained an invaluable advantage. Using the collected data on the structures of the Virrom artificial intelligences and their machine nature, the scientists of the Orcs and Primers jointly developed an entire arsenal of revolutionary biological weapons. On one hand, they created virtually unkillable nanoviruses and self-replicating computer worms capable of disabling or reprogramming Virrom networks by penetrating their systems. On the other hand, they weaponized new methods of energy-based zombie weapons that could deprive the Virrom of power and energy. Unique technologies of organic contagious bombs and biohacking allowed them to seize the initiative in the war. One by one, the enemy's defensive lines began to crumble under the onslaught of the Alliance. But the Hrant's greatest weapon, strangely enough, was not technology at all. Rather, it was the sheer strength of spirit and selfless devotion to their role as protectors. That's what brought them endless victories even in the most hopeless situations. Entire planetary systems were assaulted by Orc assault squads ready for self-sacrifice. The Hrant's unchanging tactic was the massive infiltration of live sabotage groups directly onto the Virrom-occupied worlds. Biological weapons were activated and spread through the robot networks. Within days, planets would become enveloped in clouds of free nanoparticles and biological aerosols. This forced all of the Virrom's machine calculations and systems to shut down, leaving them defenseless against the Hrant's final artillery strikes. In the fierce battles, the Legionnaires displayed wonders of reckless bravery and total self-sacrifice. On nameless planets, deeds were performed that became legends long before their end, like the great Marshal Krogor, former commander of the Sixth Wing, who single-handedly initiated the infection cycle of the entire orbital Virrom force over Carrion 9. His shuttle with a tiny team of shadow hunters fearlessly released a nanic cloud, opening the gates to the planet for the Alliance. Krogor himself perished when his ship was destroyed by the machine's last guns. But the price of his sacrifice is a true symbol of Orc greatness. Or the 666th Engineering Battalion led by the immortal Sergeant Rogum, who managed to build a secret biobomb production plant right on the occupied continent of Ganteros while surrounded. 3 years of underground operations allowed them to flood all Virrom factories with an endless stream of infections until help arrived. Of Rogum's entire 6,000-strong detachment, only 92 soldiers survived, but thanks to them, an entire industrial world was torn from the Virrom's grasp. Innumerable hordes of nameless heroes, fearless saboteurs and assault troops, specialists and technicians, doctors and sappers from all Hrant races threw themselves into the bottomless maw of war against the Virrom. Where more advanced races simply hurled bombs and torpedoes, the Orcs went into battle barehanded and fanged, determined to rid the galaxy of the insane machine plague forever. When the decisive assault on the Virrom's very lair, their stronghold on the borders of immense dark matter clusters finally came, the Hrant troops were at the forefront. Together with the Primers and other races, they invaded the heart of the machine citadel, deploying the last reserves of biological weapons. In the midst of the catastrophic battle, the Primer Chancellor himself addressed the Orc Knight commanders. Filled with awe, "Friends, on this fiery frontier you and your immortal warriors have once again proven yourselves to be the true guardians of the galaxy. No forces of darkness can break the spirit of those for whom courage and life are two sides of the same coin." After this victory, the Alliance will undoubtedly recognize the Hrant Orcs as the greatest heroes among all races, for only they have paid the highest price with their valiant hearts.